I am Joshua, 35, and I recently destroyed my brother's life because he wouldn't let my daughter sit in his new car. Before I tell you about the satisfying moment the police escorted him out of our office building, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. A week in Orlando, Disney World, Universal Studios, the works. It was the kind of trip you save up for, the kind you plan for months. My daughter, Ella, is 8 years old. If you're a parent or an aunt or uncle, you know that 8 is a magic number for Disney. They are old enough to ride the rides but young enough to still believe in the magic. Ella had a countdown calendar on our fridge. Every morning, before she even brushed her teeth, she would run into the kitchen and cross off another day with a thick red marker. My brother, Mark, has 3 kids. They are loud, they are messy, and honestly, they are spoiled rotten. But they are my nephews and niece, so I try my best. My parents, Margaret and Robert, were coming too. This was billed as the Great Family Reunion. But let's be honest about who was funding this reunion. Mark is the golden child. He's 2 years older than me, 37. He works at the same company as I do, in sales, while I grind away in operations. He's the guy with the white smile, the firm handshake, and the expensive suits. I'm the guy who makes sure the lights stay on and the servers don't crash. Mark claimed he didn't have the liquidity for the park tickets right now because he had just made a massive investment. So, like I have done 1,000 times before, I stepped up. I bought the tickets. For Magic Your Way, park hopper passes for his family. That's Mark, his wife, and his 2 oldest kids. The baby was free. I dropped $2,500 on those tickets without blinking. I wanted Ella to have her cousins with her. I wanted a family memory. The plan was simple. We would all meet at my parents' house at 6 a.m. on Saturday. We were driving down in a caravan. It's a long drive, but we wanted to make it a road trip. I pulled into my parents' driveway at 5:45 a.m. My reliable 4-year-old sedan was packed tight. Ella was bouncing in her booster seat, clutching a stuffed Mickey Mouse that had seen better days. "Daddy, are we gonna ride Space Mountain first?" she asked for the 10th time. "We'll see, honey. We have to get there first," I said, smiling at her in the rearview mirror. Then I saw it. Parked in the center of the driveway, blocking everyone else in, was a brand new, pearl-white Porsche Cayenne. It was gleaming under the streetlights. It looked like a spaceship compared to my dad's old truck and my sedan. Mark was leaning against the hood, wearing sunglasses even though the sun wasn't even up yet. He looked like he was posing for a magazine cover. My mom was standing next to him, beaming like she had just won the lottery. I got out of the car, holding Ella's hand. "Nice wheels," I said, trying to be polite. "Rental." Mark laughed. It was that condescending chuckle he's perfected over the years. "Rental? Come on, Josh. This is mine. Just signed the papers yesterday." The bonus from the Q3 project came through early. I felt a twinge of annoyance. I knew the Q3 project inside and out because I was the one who fixed the logistics for it. Mark had just presented the PowerPoint, but I let it go. "Congratulations," I said. "All right, let's load up. It's a 12-hour drive." Here is where the logistics got tricky. We had too many people for the cars we had, unless we consolidated. My car was small. Dad's truck only had 2 seats. The plan had always been for the kids to pile into the largest vehicle to keep them entertained. "Okay," I said, opening the back door of my car to get Ella's bag. "Ella, go jump in Uncle Mark's car with your cousins. It's got screens in the headrests." Ella squealed with delight and ran toward the massive white SUV. "Whoa, whoa, whoa." Mark stepped in front of the door, blocking her path. He held up a hand like a traffic cop. "What?" I asked, pausing with the suitcase in my hand. Mark looked down at Ella, then at me. He took off his sunglasses. "She can't ride in here, Josh." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "We discussed this. The cousins ride together. It keeps them quiet." "Yeah, well, plans change," Mark said, running a hand over the roof of the Porsche. "This interior is custom creme leather. It's incredibly delicate. My kids know the rules. No eating, no drinking, no shoes on the seats. Ella, she's a bit messy." Messy? I felt the heat rising in my neck. She's 8. And she's not messy. She's careful. Remember the grape juice incident of 2022? My mom chimed in. She wasn't looking at me. She was admiring her reflection in the Porsche's window. Mark is right, Joshua. We can't risk staining the new car. It's a luxury vehicle. Mom, are you serious? I looked at her. It's a car. It's meant to drive people. We don't have enough seats otherwise. If Ella rides with me, that leaves one of Mark's kids without a seatbelt in the back of your truck. Oh no, Mark said quickly. The twins and the baby are riding with us. Mom and Dad are riding with us too. It's a spacious vehicle but fully loaded. It seats 5 comfortably plus the driver. We're full. I did the math in my head. Mark, his wife, 3 kids. That's 5 people. Plus my parents. That's 7. You're taking Mom and Dad? I asked. Yeah. Mark smirked. Mom wants to experience the heated massage seats. Plus, they ruin the vibe less than a crying kid. So where does Ella sit? I asked, my voice dropping an octave. Mark shrugged. In your car? You can follow us. Try to keep up, though. This thing has a twin-turbo V8. I'm not waiting around for your Econobox to catch up. I looked at my mother. Mom, you're splitting the family up? Ella hasn't seen you in a month. She made you a bracelet for the road trip. My mother waved her hand dismissively. Oh, Joshua, don't be dramatic. We'll see her at the hotel tonight. There really isn't space for your kid in the Porsche. It's full. And honestly, Mark deserves to enjoy his new purchase without worrying about sticky fingers. Your kids are coming? I pointed out, gesturing to Mark's sons who were currently jumping on the back seat of the Porsche with their shoes on. My kids are different, Mark said. It's their dad's car. I looked down at Ella. She was hugging Mickey so hard I thought the seams would pop. She understood. She knew she was being excluded. She knew she was the B-team grandchild. Let's be real, Mark laughed, opening the driver's door. She's a bit much on long drives anyway, always asking questions. It'll be a nice break for us. Thank God, my mother muttered, climbing into the passenger seat. I stood there in the driveway as they loaded up. Mark, his wife, his 3 kids, and my parents. They squeezed in. It was tight, but they made it work. They left me and Ella standing there. Mark rolled down the window. See you in Orlando, little brother. Don't be late for dinner. I picked a place with a dress code, so maybe change out of whatever that is. He revved the engine. A loud, aggressive roar, and peeled out of the driveway. I watched the taillights of the Porsche disappear around the corner. Silence. Daddy. Ella's voice was small. Are we going to chase them? I looked at my daughter. I looked at her tear-filled eyes. I thought about the 12-hour drive ahead. Just me and her, trailing behind the royal family. Arriving at a hotel where I would inevitably pay for dinner because Mark forgot to transfer funds. Something in me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was a quiet, cold fracture. No, sweetie, I said, crouching down to her level. We aren't going to chase them. But, Disney, we are going to have a much better day. I lied. I didn't know what we were going to do, but I knew I wasn't driving to Florida. Not today. Not with them. I put Ella back in my car and drove us back to our house, which was only 10 minutes away. Ella was confused, crying softly in the back. It broke my heart, but my anger was overriding my sadness. We got home. I made Ella hot chocolate with extra marshmallows and put on her favorite movie. Then, I went into my home office and opened my laptop. I logged into the Disney World app. My account was linked to everyone's tickets because I had purchased them. I saw the group, Mark's family and company, for Platinum Park Hopper passes. Fast lane access included. Meal plans prepaid. Total value, $2,500. I stared at the screen. My finger hovered over the mouse. No space for my kid? I whispered to the empty room. Let's be real. You're a bit much. I clicked on Mark's ticket. Select. I clicked on his wife's ticket. Select. I clicked on the kids' tickets. Select. A warning box popped up. Are you sure you want to cancel? This action cannot be undone. Refunds will be processed to the original form of payment within 7 to 10 business days. I didn't hesitate. I didn't feel guilty. I felt powerful. Confirm cancellation. The screen refreshed. Your tickets have been voided. I sat back in my chair and took a deep breath. It was done. But I wasn't finished. I logged into the hotel reservation system. I had booked 2 suites. One for me and Ella, one for Mark and the parents. I had put the deposit down on my card, with the promise from Mark that he would Venmo me his half. He never had. I canceled the suite for Mark and the parents. I kept mine just in case. Then, I closed the laptop, went into the living room, and built a pillow fort with my daughter. At 9 a.m. the next morning, my phone started buzzing. The phone vibrated across the coffee table like an angry hornet. The screen lit up with Mark's face. I let it ring. Once, twice. Then it stopped. A second later, my mom was calling. Then my dad. Then Mark again. I picked up on the 5th attempt. I put it on speaker so I could keep buttering my toast. Hello, I said, my voice calm, almost bored. What did you do? Mark's voice was so loud it distorted the speaker. I could hear crying in the background. High-pitched, screaming wails. It sounded like a banshee convention. Who is this? I asked, taking a bite of toast. It's your brother, you idiot. We are at the gate. The turnstile flashed red. The security guy says the tickets are void. Void, Josh. Why are they void? Oh, I said. Yeah, I canceled them. Silence. Absolute silence on the other end, except for the wailing children. You canceled them? Mark stammered, as if the concept was foreign to him. But we're here. We drove 12 hours. The kids are wearing Mickey ears. Josh, they are crying their eyes out. I hear them, I said. Sounds like they're being a bit much. Maybe they're ruining the vibe. This isn't funny, Mark screamed. Fix it. Rebuy them. Transfer them back. Do something. We look like idiots standing here. I can't, I said. I got a full refund. The money is going back to my card. If you want to get in, you can buy tickets at the booth. I think the standby price is about $180 a person today. Have fun. I don't have $1,000 on me right now, Mark yelled. My liquidity is tied up in the car. That sounds like a you problem, Mark. Maybe you should sell the car. Or the custom creme leather seats. Mom is going to kill you, he hissed. Put her on, I challenged. There was a rustling sound, and then my mother's voice came on. She sounded breathless, probably from the heat and the embarrassment. Joshua, how could you? These are your nephews. You are ruining Christmas in July. This is petty, even for you. Petty? I laughed, a harsh sound. Mom, you left my daughter crying in the driveway because you didn't want her to touch the leather seats. You told me there was no space for us. Well, guess what? There's no space on my credit card for your vacation anymore. We are family, she shrieked. Family doesn't leave an 8-year-old behind, I said. Enjoy the parking lot. I hear the tram ride is free. I hung up. Then I blocked their numbers for the weekend. I looked over at Ella. She was watching cartoons, blissfully unaware that I had just detonated a nuclear bomb in the family dynamic. But as I sat there, the adrenaline faded, and the memories started to flood back. This wasn't just about Disney. This was about the wallet. For as long as I can remember, I have been the family wallet. It started when I got my first job out of college. I landed a junior role in operations. Mark was pursuing his acting career in LA at the time. My parents asked me to help him out with rent, just for a few months. I sent him $500 a month. For 3 years, he never got a role. He came back, got a sales job, which I helped him get, and immediately started out-earning me on paper. But Mark has a hole in his pocket. He spends money before he earns it. He buys watches he can't afford, trips he can't finance, and cars that cost more than my house. And every time he hits a wall, who do they call? Joshua. Josh, Mark's transmission blew. Can you cover the repair? He's good for it. Josh. Mark needs a deposit for a condo. It's a short-term loan. Josh. It's your nephew's birthday. Mark is a little light this month. Can you buy the PlayStation and put Mark's name on the card? I did it. Over and over again. Why? Because I wanted to be a good son. I wanted them to be proud of me. I wanted to buy my way into their affection. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the disrespect. Last Thanksgiving, I paid for the entire catering bill, $600. At the dinner table, my dad raised a glass. To Mark, he said, tears in his eyes, for closing that big deal in Chicago. We are so proud of you, son. You are the rock of this family. Mark sat there, sipping the wine I bought, and nodded. Thanks, Dad. It's a grind, but I do it for you guys. I was sitting right there. Nobody toasted the guy who paid for the turkey. Nobody asked how my job was going. I was just the infrastructure. Mark was the skyline. And then there was the inheritance talk. A few months ago, my dad sat us down. He told us they were updating their will. Mark has a bigger family, Dad had said, looking at the floor, and his lifestyle requires more overhead. Joshua, you're single, you're simple. You save money. So we've decided to leave the house to Mark. It's only fair. He needs the space. I had nodded, numb. I didn't argue. I didn't want the house. But the message was clear. Mark needs help because he is special. You don't need help because you are a tool. But looking at Ella that morning, I realized something. I wasn't just letting them use me. I was teaching Ella that it was okay to be used. I was teaching her that she came second. That her cousins were the main characters and she was just an extra. Daddy. Ella pulled on my sleeve. Are you sad? I looked at her. No, baby. I'm actually feeling really good. Can we go to the movies? We can do better than that, I said. Pack your bag again. We're going to the beach. We spent the weekend at a nice resort on the coast, just 3 hours away. It cost a fraction of the Disney trip. We built sandcastles. We ate ice cream for dinner. I turned off my phone. For 2 days I was free. But Sunday night came. I knew what was waiting for me on Monday. Mark wouldn't just be mad. He would be vengeful. He worked in the same building as me. He had the ear of the executives because he was charming and loud. I was just the quiet ops guy in the back office. Mark wasn't just going to yell at me. He was going to try to destroy me professionally. I knew him. He operates on scorched earth tactics. If he can't have the toy, he breaks it so no one else can have it. I drove home Sunday night, my mind racing. I needed to be ready. I needed to stop being the brother and start being the senior operations manager. I didn't know it yet, but the Porsche wasn't just a symbol of his arrogance. It was the smoking gun. Monday morning, the office air felt heavy, like the pressure drop before a hurricane. I swiped my badge at the turnstile, the beep sounding louder than usual. I walked to the elevators. Usually I keep my head down, check emails on my phone. Today I looked around. People were whispering. I saw 2 account managers from Mark's team by the water cooler. They stopped talking as soon as I approached. One of them, a guy named Kevin who I've helped with IT issues a dozen times, looked at his shoes. Morning, Kevin, I said. Hey, Josh, he mumbled, not making eye contact. He scurried away like I was contagious. I got to my desk. My inbox was flooded. Not with work, but with meeting canceled notifications. 3 cross-departmental meetings I was supposed to lead had been wiped from the calendar. Then the instant messages started. Generic _ coworker. Hey man, is it true? Work _ Dude, Mark is telling everyone in the break room that you stole money from his kids? WTF? I sighed. Mark hadn't wasted a second. He must have driven back from Florida in a rage-fueled marathon. I went to the break room to get coffee. It was a tactical error. Mark was there holding court. He was surrounded by his usual sycophants, junior sales reps who wanted his leads. Mark looked terrible. His eyes were red, his shirt was wrinkled. He looked like a man who had spent the weekend screaming at theme park employees. When he saw me, the room went dead silent. Well, Mark said, his voice dripping with venom. Look who decided to show up. The Grinch. Morning, Mark, I said, pouring coffee. How was Disney? The room gasped. It was a low blow, but I didn't care. Mark stepped into my personal space. He smelled of stale coffee and aggression. You think you're funny? My kids are traumatized. You stole $2,500 from me. I didn't steal anything, I said calmly, stirring my coffee. I refunded my own purchase. There's a difference. You want a lawsuit for defamation? Keep using the word stole. You're done here, Josh, Mark whispered, low enough so only I could hear. I'm going to bury you. I'm going to tell Diane everything. About how you're unstable. About how you harass my family. Do what you have to do, I said. I walked out. Back at my desk. My hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear, but from rage. He was threatening my job, my livelihood, the money I used to feed Ella. Okay, if we are playing by prison rules, let's play. I opened my terminal. As senior operations manager, I have clearance levels that most people don't even know exist. I can see the back end of everything, supply chain, logistics, and expense reports. I had a hunch. Mark said he bought the Porsche with his Q3 bonus. But I knew the Q3 bonuses hadn't been paid out yet. Payroll wasn't running them until next Friday. So where did he get the down payment? Where did he get the liquidity? Mark is a sales director. He has a corporate credit card with a high limit for client entertainment and travel logistics. I pulled up his expense logs for the last 30 days. At first glance, it looked normal. Dinners at steakhouses, flights to Chicago, hotel stays. But then I saw it. Date, July 12th. Vendor, logistic VIP services. Amount, $4,800. Category, Client Transportation Project Alpha. Project Alpha was a real project. But $4,800 for transportation? That's a lot of Ubers. I dug deeper. I cross-referenced the vendor ID. Logistic VIP services sounded generic enough to pass a quick glance from a tired accountant. But I Googled the tax ID associated with the vendor invoice. It didn't lead to a logistics company. It led to a Shell LLC registered in Delaware. I clicked on the scanned receipt attached to the expense report. It was a generic invoice. Consulting services. But something caught my eye. The font was slightly off. It was Arial, but the numbers were in Times New Roman. It had been edited. I ran a metadata check on the PDF. Original author, Mark_sales_laptop. Creation date, July 14th. Original source image, downpayment_receipt.jpg. My heart skipped a beat. He had photoshopped a receipt. But what was the original? I couldn't see the original image on the server, only the uploaded PDF. But I could see the bank routing number where the payment was sent. I traced the routing number. It belonged to Prestige Auto Leasing of Orlando. I sat back, stunned. Mark hadn't used a bonus. He had used the company corporate card to pay the down payment and the first month's lease on the Porsche. He had disguised it as client transportation for a project that didn't even require travel. He was embezzling. He stole nearly $5,000 from the company to buy a car he wouldn't let my daughter sit in. The audacity was breathtaking. But it wasn't just the car. I started looking at the Disney trip. Date, July 15th. Vendor, the Grand Floridian Resort. Amount, $1,200. Category, Conference Room Rental Regional Summit. There was no regional summit in Orlando last week. He had expensed his hotel room, the one I refused to pay for, as a conference room rental. This was it. This was the smoking gun. I started downloading everything. I created a folder on my secure drive named _iceberg because I knew this was just the tip. But just as I was saving the last file, my screen flickered. A red banner appeared across my monitor. Access denied. My stomach dropped. I tried to open my email. Locked. I tried to open the HR portal. Locked. My desk phone rang. It was security. Joshua? This is Steve from security. Can you come down to the lobby? Bring your badge. I looked across the office. Mark was standing in the glass-walled office of the VP of Sales, pointing at me. He was laughing. Next to him was Sarah, my assistant. She was crying. I realized with a jolt of horror. I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the prey. They had set a trap. The walk to the elevator felt like a funeral procession. Every eye in the open-plan office was glued to me. They saw the black screen on my computer. They saw me pick up my jacket. In the corporate world, this is the dead man walking strut. Mark was still in the VP's office watching me. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked triumphant. He held a coffee mug like a trophy. Beside him, Sarah, my assistant, the woman I had mentored for 2 years, the woman I had recommended for a raise last month, refused to look at me. She was dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Why was Sarah crying? I got to the lobby. Steve, the head of security, looked uncomfortable. He liked me. We talked about football on Mondays. Josh, I'm sorry, man, Steve said, keeping his voice low. Diane wants to see you in the conference room B. I have to escort you. Did they say why, Steve? Data breach, he said, flinching. And harassment. It's heavy, Josh. Harassment? We walked into conference room B. It wasn't empty. Diane, the CEO, sat at the head of the table. She looked like a statue carved out of ice. Next to her was the head of HR, Linda. And sitting in the corner, looking small and fragile, was Sarah. Sit down, Joshua, Diane said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was disappointed. That was worse. Diane, I can explain. I started. Stop, she commanded. She slid a folder across the table. We received a formal complaint this morning from Sarah. She claims that you have been pressuring her to grant you unauthorized access to the sales department's financial records. She claims you threatened her job if she didn't comply. My jaw dropped. I looked at Sarah. Sarah? What? I never... And Diane continued. Mark has submitted evidence that you have been stalking him, using company resources to track his location, canceling his personal travel arrangements using stolen passwords, accessing his bank records. He sent you a screenshot, I realized aloud. The voided tickets. We have logs, Joshua. Linda from HR interrupted. Logs showing your terminal accessing the expense reports for the sales team. You have no authorization for that level of granularity. That is a violation of the data privacy policy. I was investigating fraud, I protested. Mark is embezzling. The Porsche? Stop deflection, Diane snapped. Sarah has admitted that you forced her to give you Mark's passwords. She came forward because she couldn't handle the guilt. I looked at Sarah again. She was trembling. Then I remembered. Last week, I saw Sarah getting into a car at lunch. A white Porsche. I hadn't thought much of it. Mark gave rides to people sometimes. But now, Mark wasn't just her boss's brother. Mark was sleeping with her. That's how he got his expenses approved so quickly. Sarah was the initial approver for the team expenses. It was a setup. A brilliant, evil setup. Mark knew I would look. He baited me, and he used Sarah to frame me for forcing the access, turning my investigation into a stalking and harassment case. Joshua, Diane said, closing the file, we are placing you on immediate unpaid suspension pending a third-party forensic investigation. You are to surrender your badge and laptop. You are not to contact any employee of this company. If you set foot on the premises, you will be arrested for trespassing. Diane, please, look at the files I was downloading. Look at the vendor logistic VIP, pleaded. We will look at everything, she said. But right now, you look like a vindictive brother who is abusing his power to settle a family score. Hand over the badge. I put my badge on the table. It made a hollow plastic clack. Steve escorted me out the back door. I stood in the parking lot, the sun beating down on me. I felt naked. I felt sick. I got into my car and drove home. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw another car there. My dad's truck. Oh great. The ambush continues. I walked into my house. My dad was sitting on my couch. My mom was pacing the kitchen. You got fired, Mom said. It wasn't a question. Suspended, I corrected, tossing my keys on the counter. How do you know? Mark called us, Dad said, shaking his head. He said you went crazy, that you were stalking Sarah? Jesus, Josh, Sarah? She's a kid. I wasn't stalking anyone, I yelled. Mark is lying. He's stealing from the company. He bought that car with stolen money. Stop it, Mom screamed. Just stop being jealous. Mark is successful. Why can't you accept that? Why do you have to tear him down? Because he is a fraud, Mom. The Porsche is a lie. The trips are a lie. He's broke. He's using you. He's using the company. He is paying off the mortgage, Dad shouted, standing up. I froze. What? Dad looked at Mom, then back at me. Mark offered to help us. We took a second mortgage on the house last year to give Mark some capital for an investment. He promised to pay the monthly notes, and he has been. With his bonus money, the room spun. They had leveraged their house, the house I grew up in, to give Mark gambling money. If Mark loses his job, Dad said, his voice trembling, he can't pay the note. We lose the house, Josh. You are trying to get him fired. You are trying to make us homeless. I stared at them. They weren't just defending their golden child. They were defending their lifeline. They were hostages to his success. He's not paying the note with investment returns, Dad, I said quietly. He's paying it with stolen company funds. And when he gets caught, and he will get caught, the money stops. The house is gone either way. Get out, Mom whispered. This is my house, I said. Then we are leaving, she spat. And don't expect us for Ella's birthday. I don't want to be around a traitor. They left. I sat alone in my living room. Silence. No job. No family. No allies. Mark had one. He had the car, the parents, the job, and the girl. I had a suspended salary and a tarnished reputation. I looked at my reflection in the dark TV screen. I looked tired. I looked beaten. But then I remembered something. Diane said, "We will look at everything." They had confiscated my work laptop. But they didn't have my personal external hard drive. The one I kept in my safe. The one that contained 10 years of backups. Not company backups. Personal backups. Every time Mark asked me to fix a proposal, I saved a copy. Every time he asked me to write an email to a client because he was too hungover, I saved a copy. Every time he sent me a voice memo begging for help, I saved it. I stood up. I went to the wall safe behind the painting in the hallway. I spun the dial. Click. I pulled out the rugged black hard drive. It was heavy. Felt like a brick. Or a weapon. I wasn't going to defend myself against the harassment charges. I was going to blow the whole building up. I didn't sleep that night. I spent 12 hours building the ultimate dossier. I called it the Ghost Protocol. I plugged the hard drive into my personal desktop. I started organizing files chronologically. It was a timeline of incompetence spanning a decade. 2018, the Sunrise merger pitch. Mark won Salesman of the Year for this. File. Sunrise _vinyl market. PPTX metadata. Author. Joshua. Total edit time. 42 hours. Note. I included the email from Mark at 2 a.m. the day before the pitch. Josh, bro. I'm at a party. I can't finish the slides. Please, I'll owe you one. Just do the financial projection slides. Love you. 2020. The promotion to director. File. Strategy _2020 draft docs audio file. Voicemail _Mark _2020. MP3, transcript. Josh. They asked me about the supply chain integration. I have no idea what that means. Write me a script. Just write what I should say in the interview. I'll memorize it. 2023. The big deal in Chicago. Evidence. A chain of emails where I was literally ghostwriting his replies to the client in real time while he was on the golf course. I didn't just have evidence of him being lazy. I had evidence of him being utterly incapable of doing his job. But the cherry on top was the Porsche. I needed to link the fraud to the incompetence. Mark needed the money to maintain the image of the sales god that I had built for him. I remembered something about the logistic VIP receipt, the font mismatch. I used a forensic image analysis tool, available online for free, ironically, to break down the PDF he uploaded. I found the layer history. He hadn't just photoshopped the numbers. He had photoshopped the date. The original receipt wasn't from July. It was from June. He had leased the car a month ago, before the project even started. He had been sitting on the expense, waiting for a generic project code to hide it under. I compiled it all. A 50-page PDF. No emotion. No, he said, she said. Just timestamps, IP addresses, original files, and audio transcripts. I didn't send it to Diane. If I emailed her, the IT filter might block it since I was external. I called Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans is the external auditor who comes in once a quarter. He's an old-school guy, obsessed with compliance. I had his personal cell number because I helped him set up the VPN last year. Mr. Evans, I said when he picked up at 7 a.m. This is Joshua. I have a whistleblower complaint regarding SOX compliance and massive embezzlement. I'm not talking to HR. I'm talking to you. Can you meet me? Mr. Evans takes embezzlement very seriously. We met at a diner halfway between the office and my house. I handed him a USB drive. What's on this? He asked, eyeing me over his spectacles. Proof that Mark used company funds to lease a personal vehicle, I said. And proof that the sales director has been falsifying performance metrics for 5 years. Also, proof that Sarah in Ops is complicit in the approval chain. Mr. Evans plugged it into his air-gapped laptop right there on the table. He scrolled. He clicked on an audio file. He heard Mark's voice begging me to do his work. He saw the photoshopped receipt analysis. His face went pale. This is substantial. I want a meeting, I said, with Diane, today. And I want Mark there. I can arrange that, Evans said. This exposes the firm to liability. We have to act. At 2 p.m., I walked back into the office building. I wasn't entering as an employee. I was entering as a witness for the external auditor. Security tried to stop me, but Mr. Evans waved them off. He's with me. We went up to the executive floor. Diane was there. Linda from HR was there. And Mark was there, looking smug, probably thinking I was there to sign a confession or a resignation. What is he doing here? Mark asked, leaning back in his chair. I thought we banned him. Mr. Evans insisted, Diane said, looking confused. Mr. Evans didn't sit down. He connected his laptop to the projector. Diane, Evans said, we have a problem. A grade A compliance failure. He didn't start with the Porsche. He started with the ghost protocol. He played the audio clip. Josh, I'm too drunk to write this report. Just do it, okay? Use the template from last year. Nobody reads this crap anyway. Mark's voice, dated 2021. Mark's face went from smug to white in 3 seconds. Evans clicked through the slides. Joshua here has effectively been performing the duties of the sales director for 6 years. The IP logs confirm the work originated from his home IP address, not Mark's. This is fake, Mark shouted, standing up. Deep fakes. AI. Sit down, Mark, Diane said. Her voice was terrifyingly quiet. And then, Evans said, there is the matter of the Porsche. He pulled up the logistic VIP invoice. Then he pulled up the bank confirmation I had found. Using a little social engineering with the bank earlier that morning, I pretended to be Mark's assistant confirming the wire. The wire went to the car dealership. Mark expensed a personal vehicle lease to the Project Alpha account, Evans stated. That is felony fraud. Mark looked at Sarah, who was sitting in the corner again. Sarah approved it, Mark yelled. She said it was okay. The room gasped. Mark had just thrown his accomplice under the bus to save himself. Sarah stood up, tears streaming. You told me it was a company car. You told me Diane approved it verbally. I never spoke to you about a Porsche, Diane said, staring at Mark. Mark was sweating now, profusely. Look, It's a misunderstanding. I needed the car for image. To close deals. Clients expect success. I was going to pay it back. With what money? I spoke for the first time. The money you're sending to Mom and Dad to pay off the mortgage you forced them to take? Mark looked at me with pure hatred. You ruined everything. You jealous little. You ruined yourself, I said. You thought you were untouchable. You thought because you were the golden child you could treat people like garbage. You told me there was no space for my daughter in your car. Well, guess what, Mark? I leaned forward. There's no space for you in this company anymore. Diane stood up. Mark, you are terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Linda, prepare the legal paperwork. We are pressing charges for theft. And Sarah, Diane added, not looking at her. Pack your things. Mark lunged at me. I'll kill you. Steve, the security guard, tackled him before he got halfway across the table. It was pathetic, really. The man in the $2,000 suit getting pinned to the carpet by the guy he ignored every morning. The walk out of the building this time was very different. I wasn't escorted. I walked out next to Mr. Evans. But the real show was happening in the parking lot. A tow truck had arrived. A big flatbed. It was backing up to the white Porsche Cayenne in the executive reserved spot. Mark was being led out by two security guards, his hands zip-tied, company policy for violent terminations. He was screaming at the tow truck driver. Don't touch it. That's my car. That's Italian leather. Actually, Diane said, standing at the glass doors, since it was paid for with company funds, it's company property until we liquidate it to recover our losses. I watched as the hook was attached to the undercarriage. The beautiful white SUV was dragged, screeching, onto the flatbed. It looked less like a spaceship now and more like a repo job. Mark saw me standing there. He stopped screaming. He just slumped. The fight had left him. He looked old. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just felt tired. Diane turned to me. Joshua, come to my office tomorrow. We need to discuss your future. Clearly, we have been underutilizing your talents. I'll think about it, I said. I drove to pick up Ella from school. She hopped in the car, happy as a clam. Did you have a good day, Daddy? Yeah, baby, I said. I cleaned up a big mess. Can we go to Disney now? She asked. Soon, I promised. Real soon. That evening, I expected my phone to blow up. I expected my parents to scream. But my phone was silent. I realized Mark hadn't told them yet. He was probably sitting in a bar or a cheap motel trying to figure out how to spin this. How to blame me. But he couldn't spin the police report. Or the lawsuit. The silence lasted for 3 days. Then, on Thursday evening, a notification popped up on my LinkedIn. Mark has updated his profile. Open to work. And then a text from my dad. Joshua, we need to talk. Mark is in trouble. He says it's your fault. But the bank called us today. They said the payment for the house bounced. Please, pick up. I looked at the text. I thought about the driveway. I thought about no space for your kids. I thought about the years of being the wallet. I typed a reply, the bank is a bit much. Let's be real. Then I deleted it. I didn't need to be snarky. I just needed to be done. I put the phone down and went to help Ella with her homework. The war was over. I had won. But standing in the wreckage of my family, I realized that winning doesn't always feel like a celebration. Sometimes it just feels like relief. I was finally free. The silence that followed Mark's arrest was heavy, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that hangs in the air right before a dam breaks. I spent the weekend trying to decompress, focusing entirely on Ella. We ordered pizza, we built Lego castles, and I tried to pretend that I hadn't just nuked my entire family dynamic. But I knew the phone call was coming. I knew that once the shock wore off, the reality of the math would set in. Mark was the golden child, yes. But Mark was also the financial linchpin of my parents' retirement plan, or so they thought. They had bet the farm on him. Literally. It started on a Tuesday evening, 5 days after the tow truck dragged the Porsche away. My dad called. He didn't text this time. Joshua, he said. His voice sounded brittle like dried leaves. I hadn't heard him sound like that since his heart scare 3 years ago. Are you coming over? We need to have a family meeting. I don't think that's a good idea, Dad, I said, putting the dishes in the dishwasher. Mark is probably not in the mood to see me, and honestly, I'm not in the mood to be yelled at. Mark isn't saying much of anything, Dad said, his voice cracking. He's in a bad way, Josh. And your mother, she can't stop crying. We have a situation with the bank. Please, just come for an hour. No yelling. I promise. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I called a babysitter for Ella. I wasn't about to expose her to that toxic environment again, and drove over to my childhood home. When I pulled into the driveway, the absence of the white Porsche was glaring. The driveway looked empty, almost naked without Mark's symbol of status blocking everyone else in. My dad's truck was there, covered in a layer of dust that suggested he hadn't driven it in days. I walked into the house. It smelled like it always did, lemon polish and old carpet. But the atmosphere was suffocating. My parents were sitting at the kitchen table. It was covered in paper. Not just a few bills, but stacks of them. Urgent red envelopes. Legal-sized documents with bold headers. Mark was there too. He was sitting in the corner, slumped in my dad's recliner. He looked like a ghost of the man who had sneered at me in the driveway just a week ago. He was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. He hadn't shaved. When I walked in, he didn't even look up. He just stared at the floor, shaking his leg nervously. "Sit down, Joshua," Mom said. She looked 10 years older. Her eyes were puffy, and her hands were trembling as she held a coffee mug. "What's going on?" I asked, remaining standing. "I can't stay long." Dad pushed a piece of paper toward me across the table. It was a letter from First National Bank. I recognized the letterhead immediately. It was a notice of default and intent to foreclose. "What is this?" I asked, though I already knew. "We missed the payment," Dad whispered. 3 payments, actually. Mark said he was handling it. He set up autopay. He showed us the confirmation screenshots. I picked up the paper. The amount due wasn't a normal mortgage payment. It was massive. "Dad," I said, looking at the numbers. "You guys paid off this house 10 years ago. I remember the party. You burned the mortgage note in the backyard. Why is there a foreclosure notice?" Dad put his head in his hands. "We took out a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, last year." "How much?" I asked. $200,000, Mom sobbed. I felt the blood drain from my face. $200,000? What did you need $200,000 for? You guys have pensions. You have Social Security. "We didn't need it," Dad said, his voice muffled by his hands. "Mark did." I looked at Mark in the corner. He shrank further into the chair. "He had an opportunity," Mom said, instinctively defending him even now. "A tech startup. Cryptocurrency or something. He said it was a guaranteed 20% return. He said he would pay the monthly interest on the loan, and when the investment matured in 2 years, he would pay off the whole principal and give us a $50,000 profit for our retirement." "So you leveraged your house?" I said, my voice flat. "The only asset you own. You gave the money to Mark. He was doing so well," Mom cried. "He had the promotion, the new car. He was the sales director. How were we supposed to know?" "You were supposed to know because I told you," I said coldly. "I told you for years he was living beyond his means. But you didn't listen to the infrastructure guy. You listened to the skyline." "Josh, please," Dad begged. "We don't need the lecture. We need a solution. The bank says if we don't come up with $18,000 in back payments and penalties by next Friday, they start the foreclosure proceedings. And the principal. The loan has a recall clause. Because Mark is under criminal investigation for fraud, the bank considers the loan high risk. They might call the whole note due." "Where is the money, Mark?" I turned to my brother. Mark finally looked up. His eyes were hollow. "Gone," he croaked. "Gone where?" I demanded. 200 grand doesn't just vanish. It wasn't just the car, Mark whispered. It was everything. The trips, the clothes, the dinners. And I tried to day trade to make it back. I lost big on leverage. Then I borrowed from the company to cover the house payments to keep Mom and Dad from finding out. That's why I needed the Porsche scheme. I needed the cash flow. You were robbing Peter to pay Paul, I said. And you were robbing the company to pay the bank. I was going to fix it, Mark shouted, a flash of his old arrogance surfacing. I had a deal closing in September. I would have paid it all back. But you had to ruin it. You had to go to Diane. You had to verify the tickets. I ruined it? I laughed. But there was no humor in it. Mark, you stole from our elderly parents. You gambled their house away. You stole from your employer. You committed wire fraud. And you're blaming me because I didn't let you treat my daughter like garbage? You're selfish, Mom snapped. I whipped my head around to look at her. Excuse me? You have money, Mom said, wiping her eyes. We know you do. You drive that old car. You don't go on vacations. You have savings. You have that 401k you're always talking about. So fix this, she pleaded. Write the check, Joshua. Pay the arrears. Save the house. For us, we are your parents. And what about Mark? Pointed at him. Does he get to live here rent-free while I pay for the roof over his head? He has nowhere else to go, Mom cried. His wife, Karen, took the kids. She left him, Josh. She filed for divorce yesterday. She's going for full custody. He has nothing. We can't kick him out. He's family. I stared at them. The audacity was almost impressive. They wanted me to liquidate my savings, the money I was saving for Ella's college, for my own retirement, to bail out the brother who had bullied me my entire life and the parents who had enabled him. You want me to pay $18,000 now, I said slowly. And then what? Who pays the note next month? Mark is unemployed. He's likely going to prison. Who pays the $200,000 principal? We thought. Dad hesitated. We thought maybe you could take over the payments, just until Mark gets back on his feet. Mark is never getting back on his feet, I said brutally. He has a fraud conviction on his record. He's done in this industry. He'll be lucky to get a job stocking shelves. Don't speak about your brother that way, Mom yelled. I took a deep breath. I walked over to the window and looked out at the empty driveway. I thought about Ella. I thought about the no space comment. I thought about the years of being the backup plan. No, I said. The room went silent. What? Mom whispered. No, I repeated, turning to face them. I will not pay the arrears. I will not pay the mortgage. I am not throwing my daughter's future into a black hole to save Mark's ego. You would let us be homeless? Dad asked, his voice shaking with genuine fear. I will contact the bank tomorrow. I will offer to buy the house from them directly for the remaining balance of the loan plus the HELOC. I have the credit score and the assets to secure a new mortgage immediately. You want to buy the house? Dad asked, confused. Yes, I will buy the house. The deed will be transferred to me. Actually, it will be transferred to a trust in Ella's name. I will be the owner. You two can continue to live here. Mom looked relieved. Oh, thank God. I knew you would help. I'm not finished, I said, holding up a hand. You will live here as tenants. You will pay me rent. The rent will be equal to the property tax and the insurance. It will be affordable for you on your Social Security. That sounds fair, Dad said, nodding slowly. But, I said, looking directly at Mark, there is a condition to the lease. What condition? Mom asked nervously. No unauthorized occupants, I said. The lease will state that only Margaret and Robert are allowed to reside on the premises. Any guest staying longer than 3 days requires written approval from the landlord. Mark's head snapped up. You're kicking me out? I'm not kicking you out, I said. I'm just not letting you live in my house. You're a liability, Mark. You steal. You lie. You bring drama. I'm not having that around my property. He's your brother, Mom screamed. Where will he go? I don't know, I said. Maybe he can sleep in the Porsche. Oh wait, he can't. You can't do this, Mark spat. You're trying to humiliate me. You humiliated yourself, I replied. You spent 10 years acting like you were better than me because you drove a nicer car and wore a nicer suit. But it was all fake. It was all bought with other people's money. Now the bill is due. I stood up. That is the deal. I buy the house. You guys stay. Mark leaves. Or I walk out that door, the bank forecloses next Friday, and you all end up on the street. It's your choice. You are cruel, Mom whispered. She was looking at me like I was a stranger. I am necessary, I corrected. I am the only person in this room who lives in reality. Mark said, let's be real, right? Well, this is real. This is what $200,000 of debt looks like. I walked to the door. You have 24 hours to decide. Call me. I drove home feeling a strange mixture of nausea and power. I had just leveraged my own parents. Felt dirty. But it also felt like the first time I had ever set a boundary that couldn't be crossed. The next morning, at 10 a.m., my dad called. We accept, he said. His voice was dead. Mark is packing his things. He's gonna stay with a friend from college. Okay, I said. I'll have the lawyer draw up the paperwork. We close on Monday. Josh, Dad asked before hanging up. Yeah. Why? Because, I said, my wallet is closed, but my heart is still open enough to keep a roof over your head. You should be thanking me, Dad. Mark would have let you drown. I hung up. The legal process was swift. I used my savings, the money I had been carefully putting away for a rainy day, to pay off the arrears and secure the new mortgage. The house, the place where I grew up, the place where I was always the second best son, now belonged to a trust for Ella. The day I signed the papers, I drove by the house. I saw Mark walking down the driveway with 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. He looked small. He was waiting for an Uber. He saw my car. He didn't wave. He didn't flip me off. He just looked away. I didn't stop. I kept driving. I had to pick up Ella. We had a trip to plan. 6 months later. The Florida sun hits differently when you don't have a knot of anxiety in your stomach. Feels warmer. Brighter. I am sitting on a bench on Main Street, USA in Magic Kingdom. I have a chuo in one hand and a Dole Whip in the other. Ella is sitting next to me, wearing a pair of rose gold Minnie Mouse ears that cost way too much, but I bought them without hesitation. Daddy, look! She points toward the castle. The parade is starting. We didn't drive here in a caravan. We didn't squeeze into a car where we weren't wanted. We flew first class. I used the miles I had accumulated over 5 years of business travel. Miles I had never used because I was always too busy fixing Mark's mistakes or saving money for his bailouts. We are staying at the Polynesian resort, in a bungalow over the water. It's expensive, ridiculously expensive. But every time I look at the bill, I don't feel stress. I feel pride. This is my money, earned by my work, spent on my daughter. Life back home has settled into a new, quiet rhythm. My parents are still in the house. They are model tenants. They pay the rent on the first of the month every month. It's a humbling transaction. My dad hands me a check, and he can't quite meet my eyes. The power dynamic has shifted permanently. We don't have Sunday dinners anymore. We don't have the warm, fuzzy family gatherings. Those were an illusion anyway. What we have now is respect. It's cold, distant respect. But it's real. They know that the roof over their heads exists solely because I allow it. They know that if they cross a boundary, if they try to sneak Mark back in, if they insult Ella, the lease has a termination clause. And they know I will use it. Mark is surviving. He avoided prison time by cutting a plea deal. He admitted to the fraud and agreed to full restitution. But restitution is a fancy word for being in debt for the rest of your life. He works at a car dealership now. Not as a manager. Not in sales. He works in the detailing bay. He washes cars. He scrubs the rims and vacuums the interiors of luxury SUVs like the one he used to drive. I saw him once from a distance when I took my sedan in for an oil change. He was wearing a blue jumpsuit, sweating in the heat, buffing the hood of a Mercedes. I didn't go say hello. I didn't want to humiliate him further. Life had already done that. Karen, his ex-wife, got full custody of the kids. She moved to a smaller apartment. Surprisingly, she reached out to me a few weeks ago. She apologized. She said she didn't know the extent of the lies. I believe her. Mark was a master manipulator. I sent her a gift card for the kids. They are innocent in this. They are still Ella's cousins. Maybe one day we can rebuild that bridge for the children's sake. But not yet. Sitting here in Disney, watching Ella wave at Mickey Mouse, I realized that the Disney trip disaster was the best thing that ever happened to me. If Mark had let Ella in the car that morning, I would still be the doormat. I would still be the wallet. I would still be waiting for a thank you that was never coming. I would be $2,500 poorer and infinitely more miserable. Instead, I am free. Daddy, Ella says, pulling on my arm. You're spacing out again. I smile and wipe a smudge of sugar off her cheek. Sorry, kiddo. Just thinking. About Uncle Mark? She asks. She's smart. Too smart. No. I say honestly. I was thinking about us. Do you want to go ride Tron again? We have the Lightning Lane passes. Yes, she screams, jumping up. We walk toward Tomorrowland. I hold her hand. I don't look back. People talk a lot about unconditional love in families. But I've learned that love shouldn't be unconditional. Respect shouldn't be unconditional. Access to your life, your heart, and your wallet shouldn't be unconditional. There is a cost to everything. Mark paid the cost of his arrogance. My parents paid the cost of their favoritism. And I paid the cost of my innocence. I lost a brother. I lost the idealized version of my parents. But I found my spine. And I saved my daughter from growing up thinking she was second best. That is a trade I would make every single time. As we get in line for the roller coaster, I check my phone one last time. A text from my mom. Mom, rent check is in the mail. Hope Ella is having fun. We miss her. I look at the message. I don't feel anger anymore. I just feel clarity. She is having the time of her life. Thanks for the check. I put the phone away. The ride attendant checks our bands. The light turns green. Ready, Daddy? Ella asks, her eyes wide with excitement. Ready, I say. The ride launches us into the darkness. Fast and thrilling and full of light. And for the first time in 35 years, I am the one steering the car. Before I sign off, I want to take a moment to talk about what this experience really taught me. It's not just about money, and it's not just about revenge. The biggest lesson here is about enabling versus helping. For years, I thought I was helping my brother by fixing his mistakes. I thought I was being a good son by shielding my parents from reality. But I wasn't helping. I was enabling. I was preventing Mark from feeling the consequences of his actions, which only encouraged him to take bigger and more dangerous risks. When you protect someone from the fallout of their bad decisions, you aren't saving them. You are just financing their destruction. The second lesson is about financial abuse. It doesn't always look like someone stealing your credit card. Sometimes it looks like family obligation. It looks like guilt trips. It looks like being expected to light yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. If you are the responsible one in your family, listen to me. You are not a bank. You are not a safety net. Your first obligation is to yourself and your children. Saying no doesn't make you bad. It makes you safe. I hope my story gives you the courage to set that boundary you've been afraid to set. Whether it's telling a sibling they can't crash on your couch, or telling a parent you can't pay their bill. So, here's my question for you. Have you ever had to cut off a family member to save yourself? Or are you currently the wallet for someone who doesn't appreciate it? Let me know in the comments. Share your story. Let's support each other. Or, if you just enjoyed seeing justice served and want to let me know you're with me, just comment the word good down below. Seeing those good comments lets me know that we are on the same page and that you believe in standing up for yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm Joshua, and I'm going to go enjoy this roller coaster with my daughter. See you in the next one.